reform will be my top legislative priority for this upcoming session.
And look, I'm a lawyer. I believe that you have to have a place to go to resolve disputes. When people are injured, absolutely you have to have access.
Today is Wednesday, January 15th, 2025, and the Georgia General Assembly is in full session. That is one of our leading headlines in today's edition of Political Update here on Atlanta News First. I'm Tim Darnell. Thanks for joining us, and we are looking forward to bringing you all of the latest news, information, and headlines as for our very first Political Update of 2025. Georgia lawmakers convened earlier this week on Monday for the first legislative day session of the 2025-26 Georgia General Assembly. The Georgia legislature meets for 40 legislative working days each year, and there are a number of issues that we're following, not the least of which is the annual appropriation, our annual state budget, I should say, but there are a number of other issues that lawmakers began addressing on their very first day in their legislative session. Our own Abby Kasuris has this report.
Number 34, Devin Seabaugh.
Swearing in, a necessary step.
I'm looking forward to working alongside each one of you in this chamber.
Smiles and excitement as lawmakers jockey to get their bills filed first. In September, a shooting in Appalachian High School, a parent's worst fear. A 14-year-old student accused of killing 2 students and 2 teachers, injuring others. State Senator Jason Anavatarte says the thought of another school shooting scares him every day.
I mean, I've got 3 kids in public schools. My wife's a public school teacher. Something like that could happen in any school.
Teachers and administrators were able to call for help through the Centegix alert system. Police arrived in the matter of minutes. The school used state dollars to purchase the system, installed just a few days before. Anavatarte wants all schools to have an alert system. He says the investment is priceless. He suggests they could possibly name the bill to honor one of the Appalachia victims.
So I'm hoping that this legislation will hopefully lift up these families and make sure that their legacy lives on forever.
On the House side, State Representative Michelle Au arriving early, filing what she hopes to be House Bill 1, the Pediatric Health Safe Storage Bill, requiring adults to secure their guns with a lock or a safe if the gun is around children. Claudia Fruin is a retired pediatrician working on safe gun advocacy.
Require all gun owners, of which I am one, I am a responsible gun owner, be responsible and store their firearms safely to prevent youth suicide, and accidental injuries, and stolen guns.
Abby Kasuris, Atlanta News First.
That was Abby Kasuris reporting on the first day of the legislative session. Also, something that is synonymous with the beginning of every legislative session is the annual Eggs and Issues breakfast that is hosted every year by the Georgia Chamber of Commerce. This year's event was attended, as always, by all of the city and the state's top legislative and political leaders, including Governor Brian Kemp, Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, and Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens. Our own Sarah Hammond has this report.
You know, this annual breakfast is always the who's who of political and business leaders across the state. And this morning we heard from Governor Brian Kemp and other state leaders about their top priorities going into this legislative session.
2,500 political and business leaders met in Atlanta to hear what they can expect in the 2025 legislative session. And Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens says the annual Eggs and Issues breakfast is about more than just a meal.
Conversations have started here that have led to initiatives that helped Georgia secure its place as the best state to do business.
Governor Brian Kemp says tort reform is at the top of his list in a continued push to curb civil lawsuits, saying he will soon unveil a legislative package to do just that. He also announced his budget proposal will have millions allotted to invest in freight and logistics infrastructure. Kemp also says one of his other top priorities is continuing to strengthen the workforce by expanding Georgia Match into the individual graduation plans of students beginning in the 9th grade.
Ensuring that Georgia not only remains the top state in the nation for business, but also the top state for talent.
House Speaker John Burns named improving literacy rates and school safety among his top priorities, saying they will work to bolster school security, communication between school districts and law enforcement, and access to mental health care following the Appalachia High School shooting.
We will consider every measure that respects the rights of Georgia's citizens and ensures a tragedy of this nature never happens in our state again.
He says he will also push for improvements for correctional facilities, as well as having the state conduct the first comprehensive water and energy resource study since 2006.
We are experiencing record-breaking growth and development in every corner of our state, and the demand for our water and energy resources has grown significantly.
And one key point echoed throughout the morning is Georgia's ranking as the #1 state to do business, and the hope of those inside that will remain true. Live from the Georgia World Congress Center, Sarah Hammond for Atlanta News First.
The very first item of business among the Georgia State Senate on Monday was the extension of a special investigating committee looking into Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis's prosecution and indictment of former president and now soon to be President Donald Trump. Donald Trump will be administered the oath of office in less than a week on Monday, January 20th. But last year, after the legislature ended, a special Senate committee was appointed and authorized to look into the Fulton County DA Fani Willis's conduct in bringing about her historic indictment of Donald Trump and more than a dozen of his GOP allies on charges that they engaged in election misconduct in the aftermath of Georgia's 2020 presidential election. That committee has subpoenaed Fani Willis and others to appear before their committee. Fani Willis has so far defied all of those subpoenas, but on Monday, the state Senate did extend the life of that special investigating committee to continue making its inquiries into the DA's conduct and also the use of public funds to compensate her former special prosecutor, Nathan Wade, in the case. Nathan Wade and Fani Willis, you recall, have admitted to a now expired romantic relationship while this investigation was going on, and that continues to be a major political topic as Donald Trump prepares to take the oath of office as the 47th President of the United States. Speaking of the President-elect, one of his fiercest critics here in Georgia, former Lieutenant Governor Geoff Duncan, has been ousted from the Georgia Republican Party. Now, Geoff Duncan, you'll recall, was a one-term lieutenant governor, chose not to run for re-election several years ago, creating an open race in which Lieutenant Governor, now current Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, is now the current sitting president of the state Senate. Geoff Duncan has been fiercely critical of Donald Trump and his influence on the Republican Party as a whole. He has become a regular commentator on CNN and very outspoken in his criticisms and believes that the Republican Party needs to move on from the leadership of Donald Trump. This past week, the Georgia Republican Party removed Geoff Duncan from any official membership in the Georgia GOP.
Congress is conflating a tragedy with the immigration system. And there's no doubt that there needs to be some significant amendments to our immigration laws. Our immigration laws are not up to date in terms of modern day. They were written decades ago. And so there are some significant amendments that need to be made. But this bill does nothing to further immigration law in a way that makes sense for America as a whole.
Now, what you just heard was a clip from an interview that I recently conducted with Emily Davis. She is an adjunct professor of law at Emory University, and we were talking about the Laken Riley Act. Last week, the U.S. House of Representatives passed in one of its first official actions as the new Congress got underway last week, a bill authored by Georgia U.S. Congressman Doug Collins. Doug Collins is the author of the Laken Riley Act, and he and other supporters of the measure believe that this law, if it is passed, will give law enforcement further authority and really stronger measures to arrest and detain undocumented immigrants if they are suspected of a crime, such as burglary, larceny, etc. Now, this bill did pass the U.S. House of Representatives, and it is now under consideration in the U.S. Senate. Earlier this week, Georgia U.S. Senator Raphael Warnock was among the many who voted to go ahead and advance the bill and bring it onto the floor for debate. The bill did pass by a strong bipartisan margin in the U.S. House, with every Republican congressman and 31 Democratic congressional representatives voting in favor of the bill. It is under debate in the Senate, but Emily Davis, as I mentioned, an adjunct professor of law at Emory University, believes the bill has some very unintended consequences. Now, you can listen to the rest of my interview with her on Political Update, which you can download by listening to Apple or Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you download your favorite podcast. We are available on every podcasting platform out there. So I encourage you to listen to it. I think you'll find her comments and insights to be very, very interesting and informative. As I said, you can listen to all of our Political Update podcasts and all of the podcasts that we produce here in Atlanta News First on your favorite podcasting platform. And be sure to join us every Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. here on our streaming platforms, Roku, YouTube, and our other streaming platforms, as Atlanta News First and Political Update continues to bring you the latest headlines in the nation's most dynamic political state. Thanks for watching and for listening.